All right. So first thing first, gentlemen, how are you?
Doing
Great.
doing pretty good. How are you?
And not too bad. So before we get into the music you've been making lately and everything that's going on, I want to go back to the beginning. And this is going to be separate for each of you. But what initially drew you to play music or to at least think about playing music?
For me, music always had a very strong, I always had a very strong emotional connection to it. And a lot of artists, in particular, Kurt Cobain and Eminem were someone that like really helped me through a lot of tough times when I was a kid. So I wanted to someday be able to give that experience to other people.
Daniel?
Um, well, I mean, I started playing drums when I was 6, but I think I didn't realize that it was the thing I was meant to do until I was like 11 or 12. There was one specific show I got to play at the county fair in my hometown, and that was like, yeah, I mean, I can still remember that night so vividly, and it was just like, I don't know, it was just that night in particular. There was like fireworks going off, and the crowd was super into it, and the show was just amazing. And that moment particularly, I was like, I have to keep doing this forever. Like, there's nothing else. So, yeah.
And for you, Cory?
Yeah, I think it's all pretty similar. I started playing music seriously sometime in like late middle school, high school. And back then it was just like, me and my friends who in the jazz program just getting together to jam on stuff that wasn't jazz. And then like somehow that I just kept doing it more and more and like I lost track of the time, and then all of a sudden it's years later and I'm doing it professionally. So it just sort of like has always been there in a weird way. So it's like it's the kind of thing where it's like I don't know if I could necessarily pick a moment because it just sort of was always there.
Right. And
You
I
know?
imagine for the three of you, you played music all your life, as you mentioned, and then you've played, I suppose, in all kinds of bands. What was different then when Love Ghost kind of started to form or started to shape? What was different about this group of guys?
Well, for me, since I'm the founder, this is the only band I've ever
Okay.
been in.
Okay.
Project is kind of like my baby, but yeah, like Cory and Daniel can probably speak about like what it was like to join it. Cory's been in the band for over 2 years now. Danny has been in the band for not too long, maybe like 3 months or maybe like 6 months.
4 months. I don't know. I mean, it was right when I moved to LA. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like October or something, November.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely like the oldest person in the band, so I've got like a little more just general. I've got a few extra years of like jumping between projects and everything. And I think what happened with Love Ghost was I originally joined just as like, they needed a keys player, and I just like, showed up and started playing keys. And for at least at that beginning stage, I was just, showing up, playing the stuff, going home. But then like what sort of like happened, especially once like the pandemic hit, was we just sort of like hit this point where it sort of felt like we reached a corner where we decided to just start doing more shit ourselves.
Mm.
Oh, sorry. Can we swear or no?
Yeah, that's all fine.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's like we reached this corner where we started like having to do more stuff ourselves. And that sort of opened the floodgates for like everybody to start sort of like contributing their own like unique talents and skills on like everything that we were doing, where before we were working with a lot of like outside producers and people. It just sort of like started moving everything in-house, and we just sort of like, I don't think anyone ever even had like a conversation about it. It just sort of naturally turned into this thing where all of a sudden we were a bunch of guys getting together to play a bunch of music, and now we were a bunch of guys getting together to completely change what we were doing and create new stuff just like every day. I think it was just sort of that switch that was flipped from being like, just a band showing up to play music to, an actual like creative group that sort of really sort of gave me that sort of like, even before anything started popping off, that was just sort of what gave me the insight into like, oh, there's something really special here going on, because it's like a group of people that all have these really great, unique skills that all sort of mesh together to create something kind of magical.
And is that where the eclectic nature of the music comes from then as well? And Finnegan, for you, what was your vision when you started everything then? Did you have kind of a feel of what you wanted to do or what this would become?
Absolutely. I always, would envision and manifest where we were going and where we wanted to be. And, like it's still the beginning stages. I think that we have a lot more growth to go, but I would kind of like, I think like, and I've been doing Love Ghost since I was like 13 or 14. Okay. But basically I think like at the time I started out just as a straight up like acoustic singer songwriter guy, but it's kind of like I don't know, I listen to a lot of different types of music. Like I'll listen to a lot of trap, I'll listen to a lot of metal, I'll listen to emo music, and then I think it just kind of gets like reflected in the music that we make. It's like we're just learning to articulate the emotions that we have better every day. And like maybe we'll be on some angry shit, some romantic shit, some sad shit. It just like depends on the day. And I like always keeping the fan base guessing. And it's a lot of fun just being able to express yourself in a multifaceted way, and not like obviously I feel like there is a very similar connection as far as the message and the meaning behind Love Ghost in every single song, just from like, especially from like a lyrical perspective. But overall, yeah, like the vibes of every song are very different. And we just dropped Chains, which is basically a metal song, like a trap metal song. We dropped Tidal Wave, which is almost like an alternative, like prog, like Pink Floyd, Radiohead song type song. And we're dropping like basically like a pop song in a few weeks. Okay. It's just there's a lot of things to express inside of ourselves, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, and we articulate it in the way that we can. And yeah.
Before we continue on to the music, I want to get back to something you said, Cory, about having to do a bunch of things yourself. And now, am I right in saying, Daniel, you did a bit of the mixing, and Cory, you did the production side of some of the songs, or if not all?
Yeah, there's two Daniels in the band. So the other Daniel, who wasn't able to be here, does a lot of our mixing. Okay. But I do a good chunk of the producing. We definitely, like, especially once as things have opened up, we've started working with more outside producers again and everything. But I definitely do a lot of the in-house stuff and a lot of like the engineering for the sessions and stuff like that. Everyone does all sorts of shit. Daniel has started producing some stuff too. And it's, like I said, like everybody just sort of contributes what they are able to do when it feels natural for them to do it. And it's cool because it's like we never really have conversations about like, okay, who's going to produce this song, who's going to write this song, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. It's just sort of everybody just sort of like naturally like slots into what they're gravitating towards on a given song. And I think that's one of the reasons we're able to put so much stuff out so quickly, is because we just sort of show up and everyone just kind of knows like somehow that like okay, this is the song we're working on. I had ideas, and then I know that this guy has got me for those ideas. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful in this situation. I mean, any band, ideally, it's like you get a group of people together in a way that you can maximize your own strengths and then outsource your weaknesses. And this is like a perfect example of that. And it's just, as Cory said, like everyone does so many things and everyone loves the music. So it's really nice to be able to, do your part on something, hand it off to someone and know that it's whatever is coming out on the other end is going to be sick. And there's always room to rework things. And yeah, it's just a really fun process.
And you mentioned the Chains and a couple of singles. So you've also released a couple of EPs and I think an album in Lobotomy in the past. How do you see this whole musical landscape in which you operate? Do you see it as something where you can just release singles, or was that more of a COVID era type thing, or how do you perceive kind of what you want to do in looking at the future?
Yeah, we were on a very aggressive schedule. We've released, I was counting the other day, we've released like almost 60 songs since the start of the pandemic, or since the start of 2020. So I feel like it's getting close to our debut album. I think that Lobotomy I wouldn't even really consider it our debut album, because that was a completely different lineup, and that was also, we were doing completely different music back then, and I was very young. I was like 16.
Okay.
But I think that day is coming. Maybe it'll even happen this year that we release a full-length project. We're just, we were really aggressive with building the fan base and create as much noise as possible. So once we get to a place where we're somewhat satisfied with that, then we'll drop an album, a full length.
Okay. And mentioning change, what I find interesting then is when did this become kind of an international project where you have these various versions and collaborating with people from all over the world? Was that initially when you wrote the song, or did that kind of grow into it?
It grew into it. First, it was kind of like, it's kind of an interesting thing that sort of, in a way, it happened naturally, because we started gaining a lot of traction overseas. Like still all of our markets or where most people listen to our music is where we collabed with those artists. We have a lot of fans in Mexico, in Turkey, in Russia, in Germany, etc. So we figured, like, why not, double down on that and really like give that fan base something even more to grasp onto, and then collaborate with these other artists in these different countries. And then, like also just like on Instagram and stuff, like, we communicate with a lot of artists from these areas. So we just kind of all knew them, and it was kind of just like one giant, spider web.
Right. And this DIY approach, I suppose, or grassroots approach to kind of building your audience, where does that come from? And this is kind of more overarching, but this DIY mentality, why is that so important? I think for the band.
I think that it's just, it's just what we have right now at the beginning. Like you work with what you have, and you don't let anything stop you. And I think that, I've just decided it doesn't really matter who's behind us or not. You just got to keep on moving forward, and then eventually, the pieces will fall where they're supposed to.
I'll also add, I don't think it's something that we like necessarily intentionally set out to do from the start or anything. I think we just sort of like any artists in these days, like nobody really knows how to do it until you like start doing it and see what works. And this was, and like the way we've been approaching it is basically just like, we threw a lot of stuff at the wall, and then just sort of started realizing that the way we've been doing it both works and also feels right for us. and it's great that you know we figured that out, so we're not having to like bend over backwards to do something we don't want to do to get things to work, because it's just sort of we sort of stumbled on this formula that like means we're able to put a lot of stuff out quickly, get it out to a lot of people, expand our reach, and it just so happens that like the way we do it just sort of spreads it all over the world into all these like dope places. And then I think as far as Chains went, it was just sort of like this sort of natural extension of that, where it's just like, hey, we got this really sick song, we can't decide who to get to feature on it, let's just get everyone.
That's interesting.
Especially,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially with the internet too. I mean, it just makes, obviously with a DIY situation, it's cool because the band actually gets to do what they want to do, which is like the purest form of expression. But also with the internet now, like it is possible to have features around the world with people that we've never met. You know, like we've never even met most of those people. So like, but there's a song out with them. So yeah, the internet definitely enables that for us a crazy amount.
But I find it very interesting that you kind of embody that new generation of musicians in a way, because I've been talking to musicians for quite some time, and then the most contentious thing is the business side of it and having to deal with labels and all that stuff. You kind of seem to circumvent that and still reach an audience that is really into what you do. So I think that's great. The song Tidal Wave, Finnegan, you just mentioned earlier that the songs are very dependent on mood. You can be happy one day, you can be sad the other. A song like Tidal Wave, was that a difficult day?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. A lot of that song came out of the head of Ryan, who the bass player, who's also not here, unfortunately. Yeah, it's because we put together so many material, it's hard for me to specifically remember sort of what exactly was happening the day we made what. But I'm like, I think what, if I recall right, the sort of arc of that song just sort of came in. I think Finn, I think you had that guitar part, and like that sort of picked guitar part on the intro, and then we were just sort of like toying around with that, and then Ryan just started like spitballing all these lyrics about like time, and you know, I think it was just sort of very like stream of consciousness, just kind of like throwing out lines, you know, like time only goes one way, keep reliving yesterday, just all these just sort of like, you know, just sort of thematic concepts about like, you know, time slipping away and all that stuff. And then just sort of like once he had sort of like laid that foundation of like, okay, this is the theme of the song, that gave, you know, Finn and everyone else the sort of like macro level look at like, okay, we're making a song about time, let's make this thing progress like time, so that, you know, we start in one place and then by the end of the song we've like gotten somewhere completely different, while still keeping that same energy from the beginning of the song, the same way the time just sort of like slips away, the song just sort of slips away from each section, just sort of going on and on, until it finally just sort of like explodes at the end.
Right. And we talked about this a little bit, but the freedom, are you pretty much open to doing anything, or do you still have certain boundaries? I don't know if that's the right word, but
I don't know if I'm gonna if we're gonna drop a country record.
Hey, I never say never, man.
Yeah, I mean, if it feels right, I think it just comes down to if it feels right. If it's not contrived, and if it's not something that we're trying too hard to do, like it just what feels right happens. Like I mean, obviously we just dropped Tidal Wave, and then there's a pop track coming out. We didn't set out to be like, we're gonna make this crazy technical super, you know, a song that's a journey. We didn't like set out from the beginning to do that, in the same way that we didn't set out to make a pop song. They just it just happened, and it felt right, and you know, didn't fight against what felt right.
Yeah, it's like the songs want to be what they want to be, and it's like I always view songwriting as basically being sort of like a shepherd of something that like already kind of exists, and all you're really doing is sort of picking these ideas out of the air and putting them into a form that everybody else can get. And so it's like I think you know the biggest mistake for us would be trying to like, you know, be like, oh, we got to come out with a trap song today, let's write a trap song, rather than just sort of like sit with where the energy is and let that dictate what we do.
Right, and then I suppose finally, then the second half of what you do is performing these songs live for people. And now, obviously, the past 2 years that was quite difficult. And you are a relatively young band, Daniel. You only joined them a couple of months ago. So have you been able to play in this lineup? Have you been able to try things out live, and especially looking towards March, where you're going to be in Europe playing?
Yeah, hell yeah. We played a few shows with Daniel, and right now we're rehearsing every single night, and we have a really, really interesting and cool live show that we've created. We're not just like creating a show, we're creating like an experience for the audience that's pretty intense and takes them on quite the journey. So yeah, you know, like we're really excited to be playing in Europe, and you know, really wanted to play Ukraine. Maybe things will calm down by then. I don't know, but you know, we're just happy to be playing in Germany and England and Czech, Netherlands, and yeah.
Yeah, do you have any expectations of this tour, or are you kind of the same with the songs, you just see where it takes you?
I think that, yeah, I mean, there's always expectations, no matter what. But I mean, you know, we're really excited for Rock Palashed and that opportunity in Germany. That's pretty big opportunity. And yeah, we're just, you know, hoping to grow the fan base a lot, because we've kind of like grown the fan base in a very you know, cyber way. Like most bands, oh, we go on tour and then we like, they see us at the show. It's like, no, like we've like literally just built everything on like Instagram and SoundCloud and whatever it may be. So YouTube, etc. So yeah, I think that, you know, like we're expecting to grow the following, and you know, we have some really sick merch that we're bringing over there too. We're bringing CDs over there so people can buy a CD or mixtape called A Place Far From Home.
Yeah, I think that's going to be like the first physical media we have out for like any of our stuff from at least the past several years.
Yeah, and I suppose it's going to be interesting as well, because as you mentioned, it's different when you just see numbers on the screen than when you're looking at actual people in front of you. So that must be an interesting thing to experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also just do want to touch on what Finn said earlier, where he said we're sort of making an experience for the audience. Mm-hmm. I think like because we also talked about how different all the songs are, but I think if you come and see our set, you'll sort of realize they're all different, but they all make sense together. And we've like figured out the right way to like put all of these different vibes and different energies together into like a cohesive unit that I think like anyone who's just like listening to the discography might be like, okay, I don't know what this band's doing. They're doing this and then they're doing this and then they're doing this. But if you come see us live, then I think it'll all make sense and click.
Yeah. I'm so stoked for people to see the live show. Like it's hard to premeditate what the tour is going to be, because like we obviously won't know until we're there, but I'm just so excited to show people what we've been working on, because I think it's dope, and hopefully other people do too. And if they're into the music already, just like off the internet, I feel like that will be the thing that actually makes like a lasting impact, like seeing what the production is. Yeah, I'm just excited.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, I wish you all the best with the tour and with everything that you have set for the future. Perhaps an album, we will see. But I wish you all the best, and yeah, enjoy yourself in Europe.
Well, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you.